All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely. Always excited to see what we're uncovering today.
We'll get this. Today, we're going deep into a listener's story.
Oh,
Yeah, a personal experience, really unsettling stuff. Happened on like this secluded farm, you know, where it's kind of hard to tell if they were just feeling watched or actually being targeted.
I can see how that'd be unsettling.
Totally. We're talking a strange figure in the crops, someone lurking at the window, even a break-in at the house.
Whoa, that's escalating quickly.
And that's not all. There's this phone call, super creepy, and a text message that will probably make you double-check your locks tonight.
Okay, yeah, you've got my attention. This is definitely tapping into some primal fears, right? That vulnerability we can feel even when we think we're safe.
Exactly. And the isolation of the farm, it's almost like a double-edged sword, right? Peace and quiet, but also potential exposure to things you can't really explain.
For sure. Isolation can change how we perceive things too. Makes you wonder, do our surroundings play a role in making us more susceptible to that feeling of unease?
I think so. But anyway, so the story starts with the listener moving to their grandparents' farm.
Okay.
Super isolated, miles of crops everywhere, you know. They're staying on the ground floor in a room that's kind of, well, musty.
Ah, I know that smell.
And there's this painting on the wall that's just off. You know what I mean? Like it just adds to the whole creepy vibe.
I can totally see that. You're already describing a setting ripe for some eerie stuff to happen. It's like those opening scenes in a horror movie, right? All the elements are there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for things to start happening. So the listener's coming home late one night from a shift at the local store.
Late night, isolated farm. Okay, I'm getting nervous for them already.
And they hear rustling in the crops,
Yeah.
right? And then they see it, this figure crawling on all fours, moving super erratically through the stalks.
Okay, erratic movement already makes me think twice. Most wild animals you see in rural areas, they don't move like that.
Right. So it's already unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
What would you think if you saw that?
Honestly, I'd be wondering if it's even an animal at all. Could just be the isolation and the general creepiness of the place messing with their perception. Or maybe there's something more deliberate about it, something more human.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it. The listener rushes inside, wakes up their grandfather, who doesn't waste any time, grabs his rifle, heads out yelling threats into the night.
Oh, wow. It sounds like the grandfather's either dealt with something like this before or is taking no chances.
Yeah, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Problem solved? Nope, just the beginning.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because the next night, the listeners jolted awake by laughter right outside their window. They look out and see a shadowy figure just standing there, staring right at them.
Whoa. Direct eye contact, that's a huge shift. Takes it from a random presence to something way more personal, you know? Like they're being targeted.
It's like the thing knows they're there and wants them to know it's watching.
Definitely changes the whole situation.
Right. This time, the grandfather goes out to confront whoever it is, and he's ambushed, knocked right to the ground.
Oh no, that's a serious escalation.
It's not just feeling watched anymore, it's a direct threat now.
Totally. And it raises more questions too. Is this a group of people? Teenagers, maybe? Or something more sinister? We're going to need more info.
It's definitely scary stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it gets worse, because weeks go by, and they start to think maybe things are calming down, you know?
Okay.
But then, late one night, they hear voices outside, near the garbage bins.
Oh,
This time, it's two strangers, right there in the backyard.
wow. Okay, that's a whole different level of intrusion now. They're not just watching from a distance anymore.
Right. They're right there on the property.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how terrifying that would be, knowing there are people outside who shouldn't be there?
I can't even imagine.
So they think fast, grab the listener's mother, and escape through a window. They run to a neighbor's house, hearts pounding, feeling like they're being hunted.
That's a smart move in that situation. You can't just assume it's kids messing around at that point.
No way.
Yes.
This is serious. And it just leaves you with so many questions like, who were those strangers?
Right. Were they connected to the figure in the crops or the lurker at the window, or is this something completely separate?
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces. But the break-in isn't even the end of it. Later that night, the phone starts ringing.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's 3:00 in the morning. The phone just keeps ringing and ringing until they unplug it.
3:00 a.m. That's just messed up. It feels so deliberate, like psychological warfare.
It's totally creepy, like something straight out of a horror movie.
Hmm.
But honestly, the worst part is still to come.
There's more.
Yeah, the next morning, the listener's mother gets a text message. It just says, "Why didn't you pick up?"
Oh, wow. That sends chills down my spine. That's a whole other level of creepy. They were being watched, and the person watching knew they were trying to avoid them?
Right. It's like they're being toyed with, like a cat with a mouse.
Definitely unsettling.
And it makes you wonder, what was the point of all this? A vendetta? Some kind of twisted game? Or was it random?
It's hard to say without more information,
Yeah,
and that's where our story ends, unfortunately. We're left with more questions than answers.
I know. It's frustrating, but also kind of makes it more unsettling, right? Not knowing what happened next.
I think so. But it's important to remember, even without a concrete ending, we can still analyze what we do know. And this story definitely highlights how vulnerable we can be, even in places we consider safe.
Absolutely. It reminds us that no matter where we are, there's always a level of vulnerability. And
Bruh.
sometimes we have to trust our gut when something feels wrong, even if we can't explain it.
I agree. Sometimes our instincts know more than we realize. And the story is like a reminder to pay attention to those feelings.
It's like sometimes you get that feeling,
Yeah.
like you're being watched, even though there's no logical reason for it.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there. It's a primal fear, the fear of the unknown. It reminds us that despite all our technology and advancements, there are still things out there we can't control or fully understand.
And that's what makes this story so fascinating, right? The things that go bump in the night, the shadows we can't explain.
For sure. It challenges our perception of safety and makes us confront the possibility that the world might not be as rational as we like to believe. There are mysteries out there, unexplained events.
It's a bit humbling, isn't it, to realize how much we don't know.
Definitely. But it's also exciting in a way. It keeps us curious, keeps us searching for answers.
It makes you wonder, what if we only see a fraction of what's really out there?
Right. What if there's a whole other reality operating just beyond our perception? It's mind-blowing. And it's why these kinds of stories are so compelling, I think. They force us to question our assumptions, to consider different possibilities.
It's like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? This deep dive has definitely left me feeling that way.
Me too. It's been unsettling, but also incredibly thought-provoking.
I agree. It reminds us that even in the age of information, we're still vulnerable to the unknown. And maybe that's what keeps life interesting, right?
I think you're right. The unknown, the unexplained, it keeps us on our toes, encourages us to keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Well said. A big thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the unsettling world of the unknown.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and maybe keep a nightlight on just in case. Makes you think twice about those bumps in the night, right? Like, what if we're really just seeing a tiny part of what's actually out there?
It really does make you wonder. Even without a neat ending, this story gets you thinking about how limited our senses are, you know? We try to make sense of the world with logic and science and what we can see and hear and touch.
What about the stuff that just doesn't fit into those boxes?
Right. Like maybe we need totally new ways of sensing things, or maybe a whole different way of thinking to even start understanding these kinds of experiences.
It's a mind bender for sure. And it takes us back to something you mentioned earlier about trusting our instincts.
Yeah, if something feels wrong, even if you can't explain it, maybe you should listen to that feeling.
Like our gut feeling is picking up on something our brain hasn't caught up with yet.
Exactly. Our instincts are picking up on all these subconscious cues and patterns that our conscious mind hasn't processed yet.
It's like a secret warning system we haven't figured out how to read yet.
Kinda. They can be super useful, though, for dealing with the unknown, even if we don't know why they're going off.
This whole deep dive has been a wild ride, that's for sure. I'll admit I'm definitely more aware of my surroundings now.
Happens to the best of us. A little healthy skepticism never hurts.
True. And that's a big takeaway from this story, isn't it? Stay curious, question everything, and remember, there's still so much we don't understand.
Well said. And who knows? Maybe that's what keeps life interesting. The unknown keeps us on our toes, keeps us searching.
Exactly. Keeps us exploring and looking for answers.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And sometimes it's the journey of figuring things out, rather than the answer itself that's the most important part.
I like that. It's about learning and growing and opening our minds to new possibilities, even if we don't find all the answers.
Absolutely. So, to wrap things up, big thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the unsettling and the unexplained.
Yes, thank you to everyone for listening. And until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and maybe keep a flashlight handy just in case.